entertainment community, the elitist cognoscenti of the left that create all these cultural masterpieces like the DC Comic Book Revolution and, recycled ideas from other people. They are so much feeding into it because people, you gotta understand, media elite and entertainment elite. Entertain us. Inform us. But leave all your other nonsense behind. You still haven't learned that. Meryl Streep still hasn't learned that. That we love that you're a tremendous and brilliant actress. But leave your opinion behind, especially when you celebrate people like Roman Polanski and denigrate people like the president. Come on, let's get real. Understand that society is at a point right now, maybe not in years, but right now, they're at a point right now where they don't want to hear it from you anymore. They don't want to hear you talk down to us anymore. There may be times when your opinions are valid. Listen, every human being has a valid opinion and should be listened to. But understand that when you talk down, which is what I've been seeing at these award ceremonies. I mean, come on. When you're giving out the award for Best Animated Film, do not give me a speech about how actors are migrant workers in a shot to Donald Trump and our neighbors to the south in that relationship. It's not the place, guys. We want to know what animated film won the award. Come on. Did Zootopia win? Or did something else win? That's what we want to know. We want to be entertained. And yes, there comes times and places where your message matters. Ashton Kutcher, perfect example, puts his stardom where his mouth is. And he does a lot of good in trying to help a lot of people, especially people caught in this this illegal, you want to call it a slave trade almost. When people coming into this country under pretenses of having to work it off, if you know what I mean. What Ashton Kutcher does is a great way to use his position to create some social good. But when you're out there and you're applauding, horrible, horrible people like Roman Polanski who accused of child molestation, and we'll get to Milo in a little bit, folks. I promise you that. I'm going to be an equal opportunity basher on that. When you celebrate people like that, or if you celebrate the races, you called Mel Gibson a great, brilliant actor, but then, you forgive all his statements about racism and all this stuff for the sake of quote-unquote art. And when you have segments on your award show tweeting Donald Trump in the middle of your show in order to antagonize, and you have all these jokes and things on Saturday Night Live and late night shows, all you're doing is putting Americans against you. Remember, this is the America that elected Donald Trump. You may say whatever you want about the popular vote, but if the people were elected by popular vote for the presidency, I would think the campaign strategy would have been a little different. Just saying. The president has been elected. And instead of making the job of coming together as a nation easier, you're actually making it harder. Because you still think that you're up there and we're down here. Same thing that Tom Perez is going to have a problem with within his party. He thinks he's up there with the establishment. They know better, and they're talking down to their own people. That's the main problem with the initial onslaught from the Democrats in 2016, and is going to be their problem in this reload. They think they know better than you about your life, about your struggle, about your situation, about how you pay your bills, about how you spend your money, about how you educate your children. They know better. They're up here, above it all. You should listen to them because they're smarter than you. They're more famous than you. They have more money than you. They have more influence than you. They know the right people. They went to the right schools. They got the right jobs. They should know what you should do with your life because you don't have what they have, and what they have is better. That's the problem with the left. It's a problem of messengers. The messengers think they are above the message, and they think they're above you because you are uneducated. You work for a living in a blue-collar job. You work for a living in a family business. You work for a living on a farm. You work for a living in jobs that don't create status and wealth and notoriety. That's the real problem with the left. The reload that we're talking about here, politically, culturally, and in media, is tone deaf to what you and I, and listen, I'm raising a family that's not even my own family. They're my relatives, but they're not like my immediate family. I'm, putting a roof over my mother's head. I'm working 50-hour days and doing what I have to do to keep food on the table, keep the heat on, keep the lights on, just like you. And we're seeing the left say to you, you don't know what to do with your life. You don't know what's right. You don't know what's proper. You don't know what the correct process is. You don't know what you're doing. You should be listening to us because we know better. And then when you get to the message of what they know better, of greater government influence, greater spending, greater taxation, this idea of collectivism versus individualism, then you're really turning people off. This reload, politically, culturally, and in media, is elitism versus populism. It's that same cultural warfare that they say the right is keeping up. Because the right, for some reason, they control all the wealth. They control all the influence. They control everything. But the right and conservatives and those in the conservative movement want individuals to have the power, not government. They want government to only provide the essential services. But they're the ones that apparently hold all the money and they're evil and they do all these things. When these same elitists are actually the ones that are doing it. It's hypocrisy at its worst. And I know that you see through, because you listen to Behind Enemy Lines Radio. I want to thank you guys for listening to this show. You can check us out at www.behindenemylinesradio.us. Check us out on the Facebooks and the Twitters at BEL_radio. And if you miss any part of this here show that normally broadcasts Tuesday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern on Spreaker, you can check us out at any one of our rebroadcast outlets, including WJHC 107.5 FM in Jasper, Florida, WDDQ 92.1 FM in Adel, Georgia, WLBB 1330 AM Carrollton, Georgia, all part of the Red Nation Rising Radio Network. You can also check us out at KLRN Radio, High Plains Talk Radio and Sackheads Media, ICRN, the Internet's Conservative Radio Network, and Lanterns Radio. Check them out at lanterns.buzz. Check them out. They've been doing some cool stuff. They're going to have some great CPAC coverage for you as well. Shout out to Chris Pilley and everybody at Lanterns for doing such an amazing job during CPAC. But even if you miss any of those rebroadcast outlets, and there's a whole schedule there under our network listings at www.behindenemylinesradio.us, you can check us out as a podcast anytime you want. Find us at Spreaker, iTunes, Player FM, Podbay, TuneIn, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. I can't believe we got onto there. We really fooled them there. iHeartRadio, Google Play Music, and SoundCloud. Folks, we're going to take our final break, but when we come back, we'll be talking about a former Buffoon of the Year nominee who seems to be down on her luck, and why I believe we should be showing a little compassion. Gene Baradelli, Behind Enemy Lines. We'll be back right after this brief word. The show will be right back. But first, a word from Al Sharpton.
Good evening, Rev. Thanks Good evening, to Rev. You, Ed. Is this Groundhog Day 2? We are watching that was Attorney General Eric Holder, ABDs, about some Republicans at home are already beating the drums of war. Today, the Pentagon refuted that claim. And he said the American people do not want him to, quote, they do not want him dwiddling his thumbs. You can get a gig as a court contortionists, intravenous fluids, and pills coated with gelatin. We don't leave our women or men in uniform behind. It's a monument to the hubris of Dick Cheney, Representative Raul Labrador. Years of abuse. I personally apologize to Mr. Peebles. Just ask to soon-to-be former Congressman. Democrats are outright jitty. CIA's counterterrorism center. Veteran Affairs Secretary Shinseki. Why do I always mess up his name? Shinseki. I love my critics to have fun with that.
Politics Nation with the Reverend Al Sharpton starts right now. Good evening, Rev.
Good evening, Dr. Dyson.
But wait, there's more.
And we will much about that be committed. So there's no real conflict. Michael Druniak, including Lincoln himself, Daniel Day-Lewis. Behind Monica Lewinsky, the one and only Trey Songz is here. But Allison Lundergan Grimes, Gina De Jesus, when Gina De Jesus, Tea Party challenger Matt Bivens. People don't want to have their Social Security overall. The Republican savior, Mark Rubio's big night. In evolution and Galileo, this whole thing of Galileo, America's changed. Unless IT and Skillets, President Putin doing something similar back in, it won't change this fundamental fact about the GOP. Just how absurd these attacks is. Nearly 6 months after the dangerous traffic jam, the Thai military says, my friend for many years, Ilyana Van Zandt. There's nothing there.
And they gave this guy a TV show? Let's get back to our show. Gene Baradelli, back behind enemy lines. I want to always thank the Reverend Al for providing the much-needed perspective that he always brings to the show. And it brings to mind something we left out in our discussion about mainstream media and fake news and this reload we've been talking about. And part of the reload is going back to that old playbook of calling people racists. What we've had recently in the media is, especially from this recent story from reporter April Ryan, who serves as a White House correspondent for American Urban Radio Networks, of sourcing supposed racist language and accusing President Trump of racist language that he never actually used ever. Come on, folks, when you have things like this happening, this is where we see media blurring the lines of fact, reality, and the fiction they want to create. And, it's one thing to see it from a pundit on TV whose job is to make opinions happen and to espouse and speculate and assume motivations and assume, something is fishy going on because they seem to think so. And for this woman, April Ryan, to question Sean Spicer and put a premise out there for Donald Trump saying things like white America made this country, not necessarily black. Oh, come on. This is the point where this is why we feel like media has turned against us. And media is doubling down. The quote from Donald Trump was, "We cannot let our First Amendment rights be taken away from us. We can't let it. We have to speak up. We're law-abiding people. We're people that work very hard. We're people who have built this country and made this country great. And we're all together. And we want to get along with everybody. But when they have organized, professionally staged wise guys, we've got to fight back. We've got to fight back." Where's the racial undertone there? Talking about everyday Americans versus media. you can only read and hear the